A lone cowboy, Jackson Ray, lived a simple life until he encountered an incredible injustice, a ruthless hunt for ancient knowledge hidden within a Navajo girl. Her own grandfather, Jonathan Reed, driven by greed and despair, was ready to sacrifice her life for a supposed treasure, an act that sparked fury and outrage. But in the destiny of Jackson and Lily, there was a special twist. Their meeting became a battle not just for survival, but for soul and loyalty, a battle that changed their lives forever. In the end, justice prevailed, and this story became a true triumph of humanity over cruelty. This isn't just a tale, but a story that will shock you and teach you wisdom, because at the end, a crucial takeaway awaits. Be sure to watch until the very end. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss our other stories. 1880, Arizona Territory. The hot air shimmered above the prairies, turning distant mountains into hazy mirages. In this world, where every new day was a battle for survival, lived Jackson Ray. He wasn't old, but his face was already lined with wrinkles, like dry earth. In his early 30s, he had already seen more deaths than most people in a lifetime. Jackson was a cowboy, but not the kind who gets into shootouts and robs banks. He was a loner who drove cattle, escaping the bustle and dangers of big towns. He had only one companion, an old, weathered horse named Shadow, a loyal friend who knew all his secrets, even those he didn't admit to himself. His life was simple, just like him, waking at dawn, long hours under the scorching sun, eating by a campfire, and then sleeping under the starry sky. He had no family, and he had long ago learned to live alone. But something changed that day. He was driving his small herd to a watering hole when he noticed something unusual. Amidst the dry fields, where nothing could grow, stood a figure. From a distance, she seemed like a ghost, cloaked in white, as if woven from light. He squinted to get a better look and froze. It was a girl, and she was beautiful, not with that dazzling, eye-catching beauty celebrated in saloons, but a quiet, almost ethereal kind. Her dark hair seemed to absorb the light, and her eyes were the color of the sky before a storm, deep, troubled. She wasn't like anyone he had met in these lands. Her clothes were simple but clean, and her skin, despite the sun, seemed delicate. When he approached, she flinched like a startled fawn. He was quick to show he was unarmed, slowly raising his hands. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you," he said, his voice low like the rustle of grass in the wind. But she didn't answer. She just stared at him, and in her eyes was such a deep sorrow that Jackson felt his heart tighten. He didn't know who she was, where she came from, or what she was doing alone in the middle of a field, but his instinct told him.
I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone.
She was in trouble. Jackson dismounted, cautiously approached her, and offered her his canteen. She hesitated, but thirst won. She took the canteen, her fingers, so fragile and long, barely touching his. She drank slowly, and Jackson watched her. On her wrist, he noticed a small, almost invisible scar, like a brand, as if someone wanted to leave their mark on her forever. He sensed that there was a story hidden behind this girl, but he didn't ask any questions. He simply offered her a piece of dried meat. She shook her head, but he insisted, "You need strength. We'll get to my ranch, we'll be safe there." She didn't say a word, but looked at him as if trying to read his soul. There was no fear in her gaze, only deep sadness and intrigue. He helped her onto the horse and walked himself. They walked for several hours until they reached his small ranch. It consisted of a single cabin, a barn, and a well, which was his only wealth. He opened the door and let her in. "You can rest here. I'll get some food," he said, and went to the barn. When he returned, she was already sitting at the table, and there was no more intrigue in her eyes. There was fear. He felt his heart tighten. What did she see? He turned and saw a portrait hanging on the wall he hadn't had time to cover. A portrait of a young, beautiful woman, his late wife, Elizabeth. She had died of a fever 10 years ago, and Jackson still couldn't bring himself to get rid of her image. He quickly walked over and took the portrait down so she wouldn't see it anymore. He was afraid it would bring back bad memories for her. But she didn't stop looking at him. "Your wife?" she asked, her voice like a whisper in the wind. "Yes," he replied, not looking up. He didn't want to talk about her. The topic was too painful for him. "She's beautiful," she said. And there was no envy in her voice, only compassion. That word, compassion, sounded so sincere that Jackson couldn't help but look up at her. He realized she wasn't judging him, but sympathizing. He felt a sense of relief. He placed a plate of food in front of her, and she began to eat. He sat down and ate too, and they sat in complete silence, but there was something between them that was more than words. He felt that she trusted him, and that he was ready to do anything he could for her. He didn't know why, but he felt that he had to protect her. The next day, when the sun was already high in the sky, he woke up to her scream. He jumped up, grabbed his revolver, and rushed to the window. He saw two men riding toward his ranch. Their faces were hidden under wide-brimmed hats, and their gazes were mean and predatory. They were hired killers, and Jackson knew they weren't here for no reason. He hid his revolver and went out onto the porch. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice firm. One of them, tall with a harsh look, replied, "We're looking for a girl. She's from the Navajo tribe. Her name is Lily." Jackson felt his heart sink. He knew they were looking for her. He saw her trembling with fear. He knew he had to protect her. He didn't know why, but he felt he had to. "I haven't seen any girl here," he replied, his voice not faltering. But he knew they wouldn't believe him. "Don't lie to us," said the second man, short and sly. "We know she's here, and we're ready to pay you for her. Otherwise, we'll do it ourselves." Jackson felt they were ready to do anything to get her. He didn't know what she had done, but he knew he couldn't give her up. He pretended he had nothing to hide and invited them inside. They entered, and Jackson felt the tension rise. He knew they were looking for something. They scanned the house, their eyes darting over every object like snakes. They were sure they would find her, but they didn't know she was in the barn. He had hidden her there, but how long could he hide her? Finally, they left. Jackson felt relief, but it was short-lived. He knew they would be back. He knew he was in danger, but he didn't feel fear. He felt determination. He had to protect her. He went to the barn and opened the door. She was sitting on the hay, her eyes full of tears. He walked over to her and sat down. He didn't know what to say. He just sat beside her, and he felt they understood each other without words. He knew he was in danger, but he didn't feel fear. He felt only determination. He had to protect her. He didn't know why, but he knew he had to. And then he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. Under her shirt, a contour was visible, looking like a drawing. He looked closer and realized it was something strange, like a map embroidered on her skin. He didn't have time to ask what it was before she covered it with her hand. But he had seen enough. He realized she wasn't just a runaway girl. She was the key to some kind of secret. And he realized he had become a part of that secret too. "They'll be back," he said, his voice low like the rustle of grass in the wind. "I know," she replied, her voice like a whisper. "We have to leave," he said. She nodded. "I know a place, but we'll have to go through the mountains." Jackson knew it was dangerous, but he didn't hesitate. He stood up, took her hand, and led her to the horse. He knew they were heading towards certain death, but he didn't feel fear. He felt only determination. He had to protect her. He felt that his life now had meaning. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To a place where no one can find us," he replied. And they set off on their journey into the unknown. Night fell on the prairies, blanketing the earth in a dark blue velvet. The stars seemed brighter, lower, to light the way for the fugitives. Jackson led the horse, and Lily sat in the saddle, wrapped in his old, smoke-scented coat. The silence was broken only by the shuffle of his boots on the dusty ground and Shadow's occasional neigh. Jackson felt they were being followed, and the feeling was sharper than the stinging wind. He was sure the mercenaries wouldn't give up, for their motives, as he understood, were far deeper than just kidnapping a girl. Now he knew her name Lily, and that simple name somehow gave him strength. Their path led to rocky canyons, where every stone could be a trap. Jackson, who had grown up in these parts, knew every trail, but with every step he felt they were walking on foreign land, where his knowledge was powerless. Lily seemed to understand this. She guided him, pointing out barely visible paths that even an experienced cowboy couldn't discern. Her intuition was astonishing, almost mystical, and it filled Jackson not only with respect, but also with intrigue. What was this place that she knew so well? And what was this tribe, the Navajo, whom he knew had always lived apart from the white settlements? When they stopped to rest, Lily finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it no longer held fear, only resolve. "This map on my back," she began, "it's a map of our land. I'm the only one who knows how to read it." Jackson looked down at her shoulders, but Lily didn't let him see. He respected her choice and didn't press. He understood that she wasn't just a runaway girl, but a keeper of a secret he hadn't even suspected. She continued, "My tribe, the Navajo, believes in the power of the earth. We know it can give life, but it can also take it. Our land hides something very important, something they want to get." "Who are they?" Jackson asked. "The ones who hired those men. A man named Jonathan Reed," Lily replied. "He's been looking for this treasure for many years, but he needs the map. I'm his granddaughter, but he disowned me and our tribe long ago, when he decided he needed the wealth of the white man more. He believes that our tribe's land doesn't hold gold, but something far more valuable. He thinks it holds a medicine, something that can cure all diseases. He doesn't believe in our medicine. He thinks we're just savages who live in the dirt." But he's wrong. Jackson felt anger rise within him. He couldn't understand how a man could be so cruel and inhuman. He remembered his father, who had died of a fever, and felt a hatred for this man rise within him. He looked at Lily and saw that her eyes were full of sorrow. She continued, "When my grandfather left, he stole our tribe's sacred book. All our knowledge was written in it. He wanted to use it to find this medicine, but he couldn't read it. He was too blind to understand that our knowledge isn't just words, it's a spirit. He thought he could steal the spirit, but he's wrong." Jackson realized they weren't just looking for a mat, but the key to sacred knowledge that could potentially change the world. And he realized that his life had already changed, and he couldn't go back. He had to protect her, because this was now his battle too. He sat down next to her, and she placed her hand on his. "Will you help me?" she asked. "Yes," he replied, and his voice was firm. "I'll help you." They continued their journey, but now they weren't just heading into the unknown, but toward a purpose. Jackson felt that he was no longer just a lonely cowboy, but a protector. He felt that he was now part of something bigger, and it gave him strength. When they finally reached the mountains, Jackson saw something that made him hold his breath. It wasn't just a canyon, but an ancient city carved into the rocks. He had never seen anything like it. It was a place that seemed not to have been created by man, but by God himself. Lily walked up to the entrance and whispered a word, and a door that seemed to be part of the rock opened. They went inside, and Jackson saw that this place wasn't just a city, but a temple. The walls were covered with drawings that, as he understood, were the ancient history of the tribe. He felt that he was now on sacred ground, and it filled him with reverence. He looked at Lily and saw that she was glowing. This was her homeland. "We'll be safe here," she said, and her voice was full of hope. "I don't know," Jackson replied, and he felt his heart tighten. He knew they might be safe here, but he also knew that Jonathan Reed wouldn't give up, and he knew he had to be ready for a fight. They spent several days in this place, and Jackson learned a lot about the Navajo tribe. He learned that they don't just live in harmony with nature, but are a part of it. He learned that they believe in the power of the spirit, and that they know how to use it to heal. And he understood that Lily wasn't just a keeper of a mat, but a keeper of the spirit. He realized she was the key not to medicine, but to wisdom. One night, when Jackson was already asleep, he heard a rustle. He woke up and saw that the mercenaries had found them. They entered the temple, and their faces were full of malice. They were looking for Lily, and they were ready to do anything to get her. Jackson grabbed his revolver and prepared for a fight. He wasn't ready for what happened next. Lily came out to meet them. "What do you want?" she asked. "The map," replied Jonathan Reed, who was leading them. "Give us the map, and we'll leave you alone." "I won't give it to you," Lily replied. "This map is not just paper, it's the spirit of our tribe, and I won't let you steal it." Jonathan Reed laughed. "You're a foolish girl. Do you think I believe in your fairy tales? I know there's medicine there, and I'll get it. If not the easy way, then the hard way." He raised his revolver, and Jackson felt his anger boil. He was ready to kill him, but he couldn't. He couldn't risk Lily. He knew he had to do something, and then he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. Lily pulled out a small stone dagger from under her shirt and raised it. "This is the weapon of our ancestors," she said. "It doesn't just kill, it takes the spirit." Jonathan Reed didn't believe her. He raised his revolver and fired, but he wasn't fast enough. Jackson lunged forward and covered her with his body. He felt the bullet enter his shoulder. The pain was unbearable, but he didn't pay attention to it. He looked at Lily. She was in shock. She couldn't believe what he had done. And then Jonathan Reed realized he had lost. He realized he couldn't get what he wanted. He realized his wealth was worth nothing compared to the love and loyalty he saw in Jackson's eyes. He felt something break inside him. He lowered his revolver and turned to his men. "Let's go," he said. and his voice was full of defeat. They left, leaving them alone. Jackson fell to his knees, and Lily rushed to him. "Jackson," she cried, "you're hurt." He smiled. "I'm fine. I'm just tired." She helped him up, and they went back to the temple. She took herbs from her bag and began to treat his wound. He looked at her, and he saw that she was no longer afraid. There was only resolve in her eyes. She was ready to fight. You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. "I had to," she replied. "You saved me. Now I'll save you." He closed his eyes and felt the pain fade away. He felt that he was now safe. He felt that he was no longer alone. He had found what he had been looking for his whole life, not wealth, but meaning. He had found it in her eyes, and he knew that he was ready to do anything in his power for her. He knew they had a long road ahead, but he wasn't afraid. He knew they were together. The pain from the wound was nothing compared to the pain Jackson felt when the bullet hit him. It was sharp and burning, but with every minute that Lily cared for him, it became dull. Lily took some herbs from her pouch, ground them into a paste. She applied it to his wound, and Jackson felt not just relief, but something that was more than just healing. He felt that she wasn't just healing his wound, but healing his soul. He looked at her, and he saw that there was not only sorrow in her eyes, but also strength. She wasn't just a girl he had saved, but a woman who had saved him. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I'm all right," he replied. I can't believe you did that." "Why'd?" she asked. "You could have just given them the map. You could have saved yourself," he said. "I couldn't," she replied. "This is my homeland, and I couldn't let them steal it, and I couldn't let them kill you." Jackson realized they were now connected not just by fate, but by something bigger. He felt that he was no longer just a protector, but a part of her family, her tribe. He felt that he was no longer alone. They spent several weeks in this ancient city. Jackson's wound healed, but so did his soul. He learned that Lily was not only a keeper of the map, but a healer who knew how to use the power of nature. She taught him how to find healing herbs, how to use them to heal wounds. He saw that there was no malice in her eyes, only a love for nature and for her tribe. And he realized that Jonathan Reed wasn't just a bad man. He was blind. He couldn't see what was right under his nose, not wealth, but wisdom. One night, as they sat by the fire, Lily told him about her tribe. She told him about how they lived in harmony with nature, how they believed in the power of the spirit, and how they knew how to use it to heal. She told him about her grandfather, Jonathan Reed. She said he wasn't a bad man, but a man who had lost himself. She said he was young when his parents died of a fever. He couldn't understand why that happened. He couldn't understand why their God hadn't saved them. And he decided that he needed the wealth of the white man more. He thought wealth could buy him everything. He thought wealth could buy him happiness. But he was wrong. He lost not only his family, but also his soul. Jackson felt compassion for this man. He realized that he wasn't just an enemy, but a victim. He realized that he too had lost everything he had, but he hadn't lost his soul. He looked at Lily and realized that she had saved him. She showed him that life isn't just a struggle for survival, but also a struggle for the soul. And then Lily felt the earth tremble. "They're back," she whispered. "They've found us." She was right. The mercenaries had returned. And this time they were not just armed, but ready for anything. They were ready to destroy everything. They were ready to kill. They were ready. He knew they weren't after her anymore, but after him. They realized he was the key. He wasn't just a protector, but a part of her tribe. Jackson stood up and grabbed his revolver. He didn't want to shoot, but he knew he had no other choice. He was ready to die, but he wasn't ready to let them kill Lily. He felt anger rise within him. He was ready for a fight. He was ready for the final battle. They went out of the temple, and Jackson saw Jonathan Reed standing at their head. He wasn't just old, but old and sick. He was in despair. He was ready to do anything to get what he wanted. "I won't give her to you," Jackson said. "You don't understand," Jonathan Reed replied. "I don't want to kill her. I just want her to help me. I want her to find the medicine. I want to save my people. You don't understand what it's like to see your people die from diseases that can't be cured. I don't want wealth. I want to save them. I want to find the medicine." Jackson felt something break inside him. He realized he wasn't an enemy, but a victim. He realized he wasn't evil, but sick. He was ready to forgive him. "I know," he replied, "but you're looking in the wrong place. You're not looking for wealth. You're not looking for medicine. You're looking for something more. You're looking for a soul, and you've lost it, and you'll never find it until you find yourself." Jonathan Reed looked at him, and there were tears in his eyes. He lowered his revolver and turned to his men. "Let's go," he said, and his voice was full of despair. "We've lost." They left, leaving them alone. Jackson and Lily stood in complete silence, and they looked at each other. They felt that they were no longer just two people, but a part of something bigger. They felt that they had not just survived, but had found each other. They spent a few more weeks in this ancient city. Jackson learned that Lily was not just a keeper of the map, but a keeper of the spirit. He realized that she was the key not to medicine, but to wisdom. He realized that she was the key not to wealth, but to love. And he realized that he was no longer a lonely cowboy, but a man who had found his home. And then Lily realized that she was no longer afraid. She was no longer afraid for her life. She was not afraid for her people. She had found not just a protector, but love. She had found not just a home, but a family. She had found not just salvation, but freedom. She realized that she was no longer alone, but a part of something bigger. And then Jackson realized that he was no longer afraid. He was no longer afraid of loneliness. He was no longer afraid for his life. He had found what he had been looking for his whole life, not wealth, but meaning. He had found it in her eyes. And he knew that he was ready to do anything in his power for her. He knew they had a long road ahead, but he wasn't afraid. He knew they were together. And then they realized that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. And then Lily said, "Now you understand. We didn't just find each other. We found ourselves." And Jackson replied, "I know, and I am grateful to you for that." They stood at the entrance to the temple, and they looked at the setting sun. They felt that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. And then they realized that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. And then Lily said, "Now you understand. We didn't just find each other. We found ourselves." And Jackson replied, "I know, and I am grateful to you for that." They stood at the entrance to the temple, and they looked at the setting sun. They felt that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. And then they realized that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. And then Lily said, "Now you understand. We didn't just find each other. We found ourselves." And Jackson replied, "I know, and I am grateful to you for that." They stood at the entrance to the temple, and they looked at the setting sun. They felt that they were no longer just two people, but one soul. They were no longer just two lives, but one destiny. They were no longer just two hearts, but one heartbeat. And they realized that their love was not just a feeling, but a force that could change the world. The sun slowly rose above the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Jackson and Lily stood on the edge of the ancient city, gazing at the horizon. Several months had passed since they were left alone, and during that time, their lives had taken on a new, deep meaning. Jackson's wound had completely healed, but the internal scars left by loneliness and the past had also begun to heal. He had learned from Lily not only how to find healing herbs, but also how to listen to the earth, to hear the whisper of the wine, and to understand that every stone, every tree has its own story. Lily, in turn, blossomed. The fear that had once bound her had disappeared. Her eyes, once full of sorrow, now shone with hope and resolve. She was no longer a fugitive, but had become the keeper of her heritage. She shared her tried sacred knowledge with Jackson, showing him that their power was not in magic, but in a deep connection with nature and with themselves. One day, as they sat by a stream, Lily took a small, intricately carved wooden amulet from her pouch. It depicted an old oak tree with roots that went deep into the earth. "This is the symbol of our tribe," she said. "It means a strength that does not break, even when life seems hopeless." She held it out to Jackson. "This is for you. You helped me find my way, now this amulet will help you find yours." Jackson took it in his hand and felt its warmth. It was not just a piece of wood, but a symbol of their love and trust. Their world seemed perfect, but one day, they heard the distant sound of a horse's hooves. Jackson tensed, his hand reaching for his revolver, but Lily stopped him. "It's not them," she said, listening to the sound. "It's one person, and he's alone." Soon, a lone figure appeared from behind a rock. It was Jonathan Reed. He was emaciated, his clothes were torn, and his eyes were full of pain. He dismounted, staggering, and knelt down. I lost everything," he wheezed. "My people. They left me. They realized I was blind. I lost their trust. I lost everything." Jackson and Lily walked up to him. There was no malice or triumph in their eyes, only compassion. "We didn't mean you any harm," Jackson said. "We just wanted you to understand." "I understand now," Jonathan Reed replied, tears streaming down his face. "I thought wealth could buy everything. I thought medicine could save everyone. But I was wrong. I lost my soul when I lost my family. I lost my family when I lost my soul. And I can't find it." Lily walked up to him and knelt down. "You haven't lost it," she said. "It was always with you. You just couldn't see it." She took his hand and placed it on his heart. "It's here. You just have to believe in it." Jonathan Reed looked at her, and something appeared in his eyes that Jackson had never seen before. Hope. He realized that Lily had not just forgiven him, but had given him a second chance. Soon, with the help of Lily and Jackson, Jonathan Reed found the strength to return to his tribe and begin his atonement. He couldn't regain their lost trust immediately, but his sincere repentance and willingness to serve his people helped him find a new meaning in life. He stopped searching for treasure and began searching for the wisdom he had once rejected. Jackson and Lily decided to stay in the ancient city. They didn't just start living together, but became the keepers of this place. They didn't just create a family, but became a part of this tribe. They taught their children that life is not just a struggle for survival, but also a struggle for the soul. And they showed them that love is not just a feeling, but a force that can change the world. And at the end of their story, Jackson and Lily did not just live happily ever after, but became an example for their tribe. They showed them that happiness can be found not in wealth, but in simplicity. They showed them that meaning can be found not in struggle, but in peace. They showed them that love can be found not in hatred, but in forgiveness. Mini conclusion. Life in the Wild West of the 1880s, full of dangers and hardships, seems very distant from our modern world. However, if you look closely, the core values and lessons remain unchanged. The story of Jackson and Lily shows that true wealth is not measured in gold or power, as Jonathan Reed thought. It lies in human relationships, in trust, compassion, and the ability to forgive. For our modern world, where many people are chasing material possessions and external success, this story serves as a reminder. We often forget that our happiness depends not on how much money we have or how many likes we get, but on how we treat the people around us and how honest we are with ourselves. The lessons learned by Jackson, the lonely cowboy, and Lily, the keeper of ancient wisdom, are relevant today. True strength is in the ability to forgive, to accept, and to have an open heart. This is what gives us a sense of peace and fulfillment that no treasure can buy.